Hi, everybody. Welcome to Henderson's Funeral Care. From compassion to the conversation. I'm here with Ryan Frederick-Gill, the owner of Henderson's Funeral and Cremation Care. He is the second generation funeral home director. How are we doing today, Ryan?
Good, Mike. Hope you're well.
I'm doing great. Um, so last time we talked about the costs. Today we're going to be talking about what the difference between cremation and traditional burial is. So are you ready to dive into this one with me?
Let's do it. Yes, sir.
All right, Ryan. So could you tell me what are the key differences between cremation and traditional burial in terms of cost, process, timeline, options, and how should families decide?
So there's no right or wrong way for any family in Des Moines or in Iowa to decide whether they want to be buried or cremated. But again, most families that we find anymore that we do have the opportunity to serve, they do know what they want. They either want cremation or they either want to be buried. And there's not too many people anymore that do sit on the fence necessarily of not knowing. Back when I started many years ago, the cremation percentage was certainly a lot less in Iowa. We are seeing that trend up to about 65% of Iowans, 65% of Des Moines people do choose cremation anymore in 2026. And the national trends and everything that we're statistically hearing, that trend is going to go up. With that being said, that doesn't mean that you still can't have a funeral followed by cremation. And then it's really a matter of, are you going to bury the cremated remains, or is a loved one going to keep them, or do you have another plan with what you would like to be done with those cremated remains?
Okay. So, what is the fundamental difference between cremation and burial, and what happens during each one of those processes?
Yep, absolutely. So the fundamental differences in cremation and then also in burial would be the process of what is done with the individual's body at that time.
Okay.
With cremation in Iowa, you were going to use a flame crematory to break the body down into bone. At that point, once the bone is broken down, we use a processor to actually turn the bone into ash. Whereas if you're planning a funeral or a burial, Iowa does allow direct burials. You would not necessarily have to have the body embalmed to be buried, but we would have a time limit that we would need to make to bury that person in a rather timely fashion. Again, most cemeteries are going to require that casket still go in a vault or at least a grave liner out at the cemetery, and then that body be buried. If they want an open public funeral, where people are coming and actually viewing the loved one, embalming would be required in most instances in order to do that. And the process of embalming is for preservation and also disinfecting. And so you would use the arterial system in a human's body to put in a solution that you think is the right solution to preserve them, disinfect them as an embalmer. And then again, it gives the family longer time in order to have a funeral with that preservation and also disinfecting done on the individual.
Okay. All right. That's a lot of information. But so, how do the costs of cremation and burial compare both nationally and with Henderson specific pricing?
Yeah, so nationally, I'm going to probably go more off of an Iowa pricing structure to answer your
Okay.
question, Mike. Again, you're going to see the average cremation price in Iowa be right around $3,500 to $4,000, just depending on which part of Iowa you're in. The most expensive I've heard of is going to be 6,200. The least expensive would be $895 for the cremation fee, which is what Henderson's Funeral and Cremation Care does. Again, wide range in just that direct cremation, no services. From their funerals on average in Iowa are about $13,500 when you include all the cash advances in that. Again, at Henderson's Funeral and Cremation Care in Des Moines, our funeral packages, are going to be $6,995, including the casket, our professional service fees, and then from there, the grave liner for the cemetery as well. You'd still be missing those cash advances, such as the cemetery fees. Some
Right.
people already have their funeral or their cemetery plot paid for. Some people don't. We can put that on the bill. We would put the opening and closing of the grave on the bill too. So again, you could have a $20,000 funeral. You can have an $8,000 funeral with everything included here at Henderson's Funeral and Cremation Care in Des Moines. So again, wide variety. When you go back to cremation, you can have a direct cremation. You could still have a full funeral prior to cremation with a rental casket. You could have a service at a church. You could have it, at the funeral home. Anywhere that you wanted to still have that service, you could have that opportunity followed by cremation.
That sounds like you got it all covered. That's quite a wide variety. So, to help people in their decision making process, could you kind of walk us through what the typical timelines for cremation versus traditional burial are from start to finish?
Yep, absolutely. So an individual that were to pass away and just wanted direct cremation, we would certainly get them into our care immediately whenever the family was ready for us, whether we're picking up from a house, whether we're picking up from a hospital or a nursing home. From there, once they're in our care, there's some paperwork that needs to be done. We would sit with the family and get the information for the death certificate. We would also want their social security number because we would file that on their behalf. From there, if they would like an obituary put together, we would gather all of that information, where they were born, what their parents' name are, date of birth, social, what they did for a living, were they a veteran or not. And then we're going to ask those questions for, the written obituary, where they grew up at, what school they went to, where did they go to college, where did they work, what are their hobbies, what are their memberships, who's their surviving family, who in their family has passed away. And then we're going to ask all of those questions about the service themselves, if they want a service or not. And if they do, we're going to ask those questions. Where would you like it at? When would you like it at? Who would you like to officiate? What songs do you want? Do you want flowers? And then we put all of that together and give the family that draft of the obituary. Once they then send it back to us or tell us what to change or correct, then we would post it along with a nice picture of an individual.
Very good. Um, so moving on to one of the questions that I'm sure that a lot of families have is, what religious and cultural perspectives should families consider when choosing between cremation and burial?
So there is not a culture anymore that has openly condemned cremation anymore. I think the Catholic Church, to my knowledge, was probably the last one, and that was in the 80s where they said it was okay.
From my
They
understanding,
have
that's correct.
and they have put out kind of the memo. If you are to be cremated, they still strongly encourage you to be buried, your ashes to be buried. But again, culturally, you see a lot of different cultures still accept cremation. A lot of different cultures still historically would be followed by a direct burial or a full funeral followed, with the cemetery burial.
Very good. So when you're choosing between the two, Ryan, can you tell me, how does cremation and burial compare in terms of environmental impact?
Yeah, so the environmental impact for cremation, maybe you've heard it in the news, maybe you've not, but with a smokestack and emissions, you're going to burn gas to burn a body. And then from there, there are some emissions that do come out of your crematory, and you do use either natural gas or LP in order to run your crematory. From there, traditional burial, it's going to take up some footprint of the earth itself. If you are in a protected casket and vault, there shouldn't be any type of contaminant into the ground. If you do have a casket and a vault that don't seal, water is going to get into that casket and vault, and you could potentially have, an individual embalming fluid get into the soil. Nationally, you've heard a lot, maybe you haven't, about green burials. And then the other is going to be alkaline hydrolysis, which is breaking the body down with water. And then lastly, it's kind of now out east been very popular. It's going to be human composting. So again, in Iowa, alkaline hydrolysis is not legal. In Iowa, human composting is not legal. Do I ever foresee that in the near future changing? I don't with either of those. So currently, Des Moines and in Iowa, your funeral service and your cremation options would be cremation with heat or to be buried in a cemetery if you are embalmed and have a traditional funeral.
Very good. So let's say that you choose cremation. What types of services are still possible with cremations, and how does it differ from the type of service itself?
Absolutely. So with cremation, you have a longer time if you're going to be cremated, and then we find that families are having services 3, 4, 5 months down the road. Some people even longer than that. It does give the flexibility of the family timing to really get everybody that needs to be a part of that. On a funeral itself, where you have a body present, I mean, you have 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks while you have that body present, still to have the service and then have the burial. So those would be kind of the different types of timing wise. But with cremation options in Des Moines and in Iowa, you can really have a lot of different options to choose from. Where do you want the service? When do you want the service? Are we still going to have the body present in a casket followed by cremation? Again, we're seeing a lot more celebrations of life, a lot more what I would call non-traditional funerals or services, you know, at the golf course, at a family park, at a city park, at a community center. So again, that tends to be the trend that we're seeing amongst cremation and against families that choose cremation. No right or wrong way to do any service. Our job here at Henderson's Funeral and Cremation Care is to listen to the family, find their needs and to make those things happen for them on their behalf.
Perfect. Um, so you were talking earlier about the averages going up to, I believe you said 65%. Can you ask me why cremation has become more popular and what are the current trends in Iowa and nationwide?
So that is the trend in Iowa. We are statewide 65% cremation.
Okay,
Nationally, there's going to be some states that are up to 89%. And then there's going to be some states that are probably at 40% cremation. So it's a wide variety of cremation trends nationally. We tend to still be in one of those that is moving in the upward direction. Again, probably 26 years ago when I graduated mortuary school. Iowa percentage wise was probably 5%, maybe 7, 8,
oh
somewhere in
wow.
that. And so in the last 25 years, we've jumped up basically 60%. I don't see that slowing down. Cremation is popular in Des Moines. Cremation is popular in Iowa. It's popular everywhere. And again, I think the reason is you don't have to have that rush. You can really take your time once the body's cremated to plan anything else out, whatever type of services you want. It tends to be less expensive to do cremation only. And even cremation with a service is still going to save you some money versus having a funeral service as well. So those are the things that I correlate it with. But I do think as a society, with cremation being so popular, we're still missing out on that viewing opportunity for family to come in, see the reality that their loved one has passed away, take time with them, and then, move on to cremation versus just having the individual picked up and then cremated without giving that family the final opportunity. I should say not giving them, they're choosing not to have that opportunity where as a society, I think we need to get back to having that at least viewing with a family prior to cremation.
No, I completely agree with you on that. Coming from a family that my parents were older, I've been around this quite a bit, and closure is important.
Closure is very important, and it's kind of one of those, seeing the reality is going to be the first step, and be able to get to the point of having some closure.
I agree with you. So, you've done a great job of explaining the differences, and not only the cost, but in the process, and just everything. You've done a great job today here, Ryan. So, I'll wind this up, and I just want to ask you how Henderson supports family in making the decision without pressure.
We are not high pressure salespeople at all. And again, we want to make sure it's the right decision for any family that walks through our door, and that is the right decision for them, whatever they choose. Again, cost wise, I'm very cost conscious myself, and to try to sell somebody a $20,000 casket where they can't afford it, it's just never happened here at Henderson's Funeral and Cremation Care, nor would it. Now, again, if the family wants that, sure, we have options, but they're far few between. And personally, in my 26-year career, I've never never sold anything that expensive, because again, we're trying to help them, through a difficult time, and again, keeping affordable funeral services and cremation options for family. I do think it's probably more important now than ever, just with everybody's finances and the costs of everything and inflation. And here we are, all trying to help each other.
That's great to hear. Again, thank you so much. You've once again broken down all the components that on the differences today, and done a really great job explaining it. I appreciate your time. Again, this is never an easy thing, but that's why we named this from compassion to the conversation. So thanks for joining Ryan and myself today. I
You're
look
welcome,
forward to
Mike.
our next talk, and we will we'll just keep explaining this to families and help them feel better about choosing Hendersons.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You as well.